Hello, Week to Warrior. I've decided to skip the preface to Samuel Butler's translation of the Odyssey because I don't believe it adds anything. I was just reading it and I'm just cutting it out, I did a whole thing and I started it and it was not the thing. So we're just starting on the Odyssey, Book 1, translation by Samuel Butler, the very same book that I first read at the ripe age of 10 years old that shaped my life so very much. I hope you enjoy. I will be commentating the Odyssey as well. So, because you can get the translation anywhere. You can go on Audible and listen to this. So, if you want to listen to me read the Odyssey, I'm going to read the Odyssey. And it's going to have Devin's commentaries. The Odyssey by Samuel Butler, translated. Well, Odyssey by Homer, translated by Samuel Butler with Devin's commentary. I didn't really sleep last night. So, it's going to be interesting for all of us. Merry Christmas, y'all. Okay. Tell me, O Muse, of that ingenious hero who traveled far and wide after he had sacked the famous town of Troy. Many cities did he visit, and many were the nations with whose manners and customs he was acquainted. Moreover, he suffered much by sea while trying to save his own life and bring his men safely home. But do what he might, you're going to hear me drinking water throughout this. So I'm going to be hydrated. It's very important. But do what he might, he could not save his men, for they perished through their own sheer folly in eating of the cattle of the sun god Hyperion. So the god prevented them from ever reaching home. Tell me, too, about all these things, O daughter of Zeus, from whatever source you may know them. So now all who escaped death in battle or by shipwreck had got safely home except Odysseus. And he, though he was longing to return to his wife and country, was detained by the goddess Calypso, who had got him in a large cave and wanted to marry him. But as the years went by, there came a time when the gods settled that he should go back to Ithaca. Even then, however, when he was among his own people, his troubles were not yet over. Nevertheless, all the gods had now begun to pity him except Poseidon, who still persecuted him without ceasing and would not let him go home. Now Poseidon had gone to the Ethiopians, who are at the world's end, and lie in two halves, one looking west, the other east. He had gone there to accept a hecatomb of sheep and oxen. Hecatomb is a large number of sheep and oxen. And was enjoying himself at his festival, but the other gods met at the house of Olympian Zeus, and the sire of the gods and men spoke first. At that moment he was thinking of Aegisthus, who had been killed by Agamemnon's son Orestes. So he said to the other gods, See now, how men lay blame upon us gods for what is, after all, nothing but their own folly. Look at Aegisthus. He must needs make love to Agamemnon's wife unrighteously, and then kill Agamemnon, though he knew it would be death of him. For I sent Hermes to warn him not to do either of these things, inasmuch as Orestes would be sure to take his revenge when he grew up and wanted to return home. And Hermes told him all this in goodwill, but he would not listen, and now he has paid everything in full. Then Athena said, Father, son of Cronos, king of kings, it served Aegisthus right, and so it would anyone else who does as he did. But Aegisthus is neither here nor there, for it is Odysseus that my heart bleeds. When I think of his sufferings in the lonely, sea-girt island, far away, poor man, from all his friends. It is an island covered with forest in the very middle of the sea, and a goddess lives there, daughter of the magician Atlas, who looks after the bottom of the ocean, and carries the great columns that keep heaven and earth asunder. This daughter of Atlas has got a hold of poor unhappy Odysseus, and keeps trying by every kind of blandishment to make him forget his home, so that he is tired of life and thinks of nothing but how he may once more see the smoke of his own chimney. Sir, take no heed of this. Yet when Odysseus was before Troy, did he not propitiate you with many burnt sacrifices? Why then should you keep being so angry with him? So this is the sort of commentary I'm going to do throughout the Odyssey, and this is what makes the Odyssey so fascinating to me as someone who's read it over 30 times. So the layers of manipulative depth in the Odyssey know no bounds. It's absolutely brilliant. I believe the Odyssey was a tool used to teach young men how to think about power. So notice this. Notice this. We're still in the first 2 pages. Not even 2 paragraphs in. And already we've established we have Odysseus. Excuse me, the hero who sacked Troy. Favorite of Athena. Persecuted by Poseidon. And right here it says, nevertheless, all the gods have begun to pity him except Poseidon, who still persecuted him without ceasing and would not let him go home. So Athena's basically convinced everyone to let Odysseus go home now. So let's actually take this one step further. So the city of Troy, you may or may not know, is sacred to Poseidon because Poseidon was forced to build its walls as punishment for attempting to flood Athens when Athens chose Athena as their patron goddess over Poseidon, favoring the gift of the olive tree over the gift of the horse. Poseidon gave the horse, but because the horse represents war and the olive tree represents cultivation. So the Athenians chose cultivation over war. And Poseidon got mad about this, so created a salt spring in the middle of the city to destroy it. Zeus made him stop. Funny enough, I think the Minoan culture, the culture before the Mycenaean culture, the culture of Troy, the culture that the Mycenaean culture, Mycenaeans being the Homeric Greeks that the Odyssey is about, they worship Poseidon over Zeus. Like, they were a land and sea dominating people, and they worshipped Poseidon. That's why the horse was sacred to Troy, and why the Trojan horse, it's starting to come together, was given as a gift by Odysseus and the Greeks to the Trojans. It's a complicated insult to Poseidon. And that's one of the reasons why Poseidon's so pissed off at Odysseus. Because not only did Odysseus destroy his sacred city, but he did so with a symbol that's sacred to Poseidon. That's a specific hearkening back to when he lost to Athena by inventing the horse. And it's inspired by Athena, which is done to overthrow the city of Troy. So Athena is really, like, this is a historical moment too. Athena is putting Zeus in power over Poseidon. Like, Zeus is the top god, but Poseidon's the patron god of the top civilization. So it's kind of different. This is Athena putting her dad on top by putting the civilization that we've just established worships him primarily, Odysseus making all his sacrifices to Zeus outside of Troy, by putting that civilization over Troy. No wonder Poseidon's upset, not to mention what happens later with Polyphemus. So there needs to be some face-saving way that they can get their favorite instrument of usurpation out of his quote-unquote captivity with Calypso, which was probably also just a ploy by Athena to save Odysseus' life. It's very interesting, like, all these layers. I'll go through these as we go through the Odyssey, because it's brilliant. It is. I used to think that the sections that were the most violent were the sections where people were dying. And then I realized that the only difference between the sections where people are dying and the sections where people aren't dying is that they're using words to determine if they can get away with murder constantly. And it's brilliant. And this is why we still base our civilization on the Greeks in so many ways. That's why the company is weak to warrior, baby. Okay, so. And that's all right there, because Poseidon's off with the Ethiopians. They just happened to be celebrating. Just happened to be. It wasn't arranged by Athena or anything. And they're talking about Aegisthus. Wonder how that came up. Totally wasn't Athena seeding the conversation. Then she just jumps in. Why are you talking about Aegisthus when Odysseus is right here? Oh, look, it's all the gods. Now we tune back in. You, sir, take no heed of this. Yet when Odysseus was before Troy, did he not propitiate you with many burnt sacrifice? Why, then, should you keep being so angry with him? And Zeus said, my child, what are you talking about? How could I forget Odysseus, than whom there is no more capable man on earth? nor more liberal in his offerings to the immortal gods that live in heaven. Bear in mind, however, that Poseidon is still furious with Odysseus for having blinded an eye of Polyphemus, king of the Cyclopes. Polyphemus is son to Poseidon by the nymph Theusa, daughter to the sea king Phorcys. Therefore, though he will not kill Odysseus outright, he torments him by preventing him from getting home. Still, let us lay our heads together and see how we can help him to return. Poseidon will then be pacified, for if we're all of one mind, he can hardly stand out against us. So, this is brilliant right there. I mean, that doesn't even need to be outlined. And Athena said, Father Zeus, son of Cronos, king of kings, if then the gods now mean that Odysseus should get home, we should first send Hermes to the Ogygian island to tell Calypso that we have made up our mind and that he is to return. In the meantime, I will go to Ithaca to put heart into Odysseus' son Telemachus. I will embolden him to call the Achaeans in assembly and speak out to the suitors of his mother Penelope, who persist in eating up any number of sheep and oxen. I'll also conduct him to Sparta and Pylos to see if he can hear anything about the return of his dear father, for this will make people speak well of him. So yeah, this entire thing was just set up by Athena from the very beginning, and she just dominoes. It's beautiful. She already laid it all out. She's waiting for Telemachus to be old enough. Like, this is just all Athenian dominoes. God bless Athena. I think Athena is also the same voice of wisdom from Proverbs, because what else could Athena be? Like, let's continue though. So, it gets weird because you have the Catholic monk Balthazar Gracian who talks about cultivating your inner Minerva. So there's this very strange overlap between Mycenaean Greek gods and goddesses, their place in the human psyche, the consumption of psychedelic drugs, Dionysus, Jesus Christ, and the Christian Church. That's another story. Let's keep reading the Odyssey. So saying, she bound on her glittering gold sandals, imperishable, with which she can fly like the wind over land and sea. She grasped the redoubtable bronze-shod spear, so stout, sturdy, and strong, wherewith she quells the ranks of heroes who have displeased her. Dang. Down she darted from the topmost summits of Olympus, whereon forthwith she was in Ithaca, at the gateway of Odysseus' house, disguised as a visitor Mentes, chief of the Taphians. She held a bronze spear in her hand, where she found the lordly suitors seated on the hides of oxen which they had killed and eaten, playing draughts in front of the house. Men, servants, and pages were bustling about to wait upon them, some mixing wine with water in mixing bowls, some cleaning down the tables with wet sponges and laying them out again, and some cutting up great quantities of meat. Telemachus saw her long before anyone else did. It's fascinating how observation is such a key component to noticing the gods. He was sitting moodily among the suitors, thinking about his brave father and how he would send them flying out of the house if he were to come to his own again and be honored as in the days gone by. Thus brooding, he sat among them. He caught sight of Athena and went straight to the gate, for he was vexed that a stranger should be kept waiting for admittance. That's good, takes ownership of his house. He took her right hand in his own and bade her give him her spear. Welcome, he said, to our house. When you have partaken of food, you shall tell us what you have come for. He's a good host as well. It's Xenia right there. That's that Greek hospitality that allows civilization to function. The way he led the way as he spoke, and Athena followed him. When they were within, he took her spear and set it upon the spear stand at a strong bearing post, along with many other spears of his unhappy father, and he conducted her to a richly decorated seat, under which he drew a cloth of damask. There was a footstool also for her feet, and he set another near her for himself, away from the suitors, that she might not be annoyed while eating by their noise and insolence, and that he may ask her more freely about his father. A maidservant then brought them water in a beautiful gold ewer, and poured it into a silver basin for them to wash their hands. She drew a clean table beside them. An upper servant brought them bread and offered them many good things of which there was in the house. And the carver fetched them plates of all manner of meats and set gold cup by their side. And manservant brought them wine and poured it for them. So this is good. This shows that Telemachus is a man of means. I mean, he at least knows how to command the servants of his household, and they seem to respect him and his guests and stuff. But they have these troublesome suitors there, so there's this problem. Then the suitors came in and took their places on the benches and seats. Forthwith the manservants poured water over their hands, and maids went round with the bread baskets, and pages filled the mixing bowls with wine and water. So these are just servants doing servant things. They don't really have any loyalty to anyone, evidently. Like, oh, suitors, Telemachus, whatever. Like, master's master. Which is silly, because it's not, but that's why they're servants, because they're silly like that. So, as soon as they had enough to eat and drink, they wanted music and dancing, which are the crowning embellishments of a banquet. So a servant brought a lyre to Phemius, whom they compelled compelled perforce to sing to them. This is a Samuel Butler translation, so it's a little clunky. But it's good, though, because this is the translation that I first read that stuck out to me so much. So, this is the one I will read to you now, and I will comment on. As soon as he touched the lyre, he began to sing. Telemachus spoke low to Athena, with his head close to hers, that no man might hear. I hope, sir, he said, and he's saying sir because Athena's disguised as mentor. I hope, sir, he said, that you will not be offended with what I am going to say. Singing comes cheap to those who do not pay for it, and all this is done at the cost of one whose bones lie rotting in some wilderness or grinding to powder in the surf. So he's trying to communicate. He's not a little boy, and he's not, like, hopeful his father's going to come back. Which is kind of a little depressing. I mean, he's cynical, but better cynical than naive, maybe. If these men were to see my father come back to Ithaca, they would pray for longer legs rather than a longer purse. For money would not serve them, but alas, he has fallen on ill fate, and even when people do sometimes say he is coming, we no longer heed them. We shall never see him again. Oh, it's sad. And now, sir, tell me true, who you are and where you come from. Tell me of your town and parents, what manner of ship you came in, how your crew brought you to Ithaca, and of what nation they declared themselves to be, for you cannot have come by land. Makes sense, because it's an island. Tell me also truly, for I want to know, are you a stranger to this house, or have you been here in my father's time? In the old days we have many visitors, for my father went about much himself. And Athena answered, I will tell you truly and particularly about it. I am Mentes, son of Enchelaus. I am the king of the Taphians. I have come here with my ship and crew, on a voyage to men of foreign tongue, being bound for Timisa, with a cargo of iron. Shall bring back copper, for my ship it lies yonder off in the open country, away from town, in the harbor Raytheon, under a wooded mountain Nitrium. Our fathers were friends before us, old Laertes will tell you, if you go and ask him. They say, however, that he never comes to town now, and lives by himself in the country, faring hardly with an old woman to look after him. He gets his dinner for him when he comes in tired from pottering about his vineyard. They told me your father was home again, and that was why I came. But it seems the gods are keeping him back, for he is not dead yet, not on the mainland. It's more likely that he is on some secret island in the mid-ocean, or a prisoner among savages who are detaining him against his will. I am no prophet and know very little about omens, but I speak as it is borne in upon me from heaven, and I assure you that he will not be away much longer, for he is a man of such resource that even though he were in chains of iron, he would find some means of getting home again. It's lines like that just inspired me about Odysseus. Like, I'm just like, yes! Oh, for even if he was in chains of iron, he would find a way to come home again. But tell me, and tell me true, can Odysseus really have such a fine-looking fellow for his son? You are indeed wonderfully like him in the eyes and head, for we were close friends before he set sail for Troy, where the flower of all the Argives went also. Since that time we have also neither seen each other. My mother, answered Telemachus, tells me I am the son to Odysseus, but it is a wise child that knows his own father. Would that I were the son to one who had grown old upon his own estates, for since you ask me, there is no more ill-starred man under heaven than he who they tell me is my father. So that's kind of like Telemachus just even doubts that Odysseus is actually his father, because he's never seen the guy. Just like, they say he's my dad, but like, who knows? Which is, oh well. And Athena said, there is no fear of your race dying out yet, while Penelope has such a fine son as you are. But tell me, and tell me true, what is the meaning of all this feasting, and who are these people, and what is it all about? Have you some banquet, or is there a wedding in the family? For no one seems to be bringing any provision of his own. And the guests, how atrociously they are behaving, what a riot they make over the whole house. It is enough to disgust any respectable person who comes near them. Sir, said Telemachus, as regards your question, as long as my father was here and well with us in the house, okay, so long as my father was here, it was well with us in the house and with the house. But the gods, in their displeasure, have willed it otherwise, and have hidden him away more closely than mortal man has ever yet hidden. I could have borne it better, even though he were dead, if he had fallen with his men before Troy, or had died with friends around him when the days of fighting were done. For then the Achaeans would have built a mound over his ashes, and I would have been heir to his renown. But now the storm winds have spirited him away, we know not whither. For he is gone without leaving so much as a trace behind him, and I inherit nothing but dismay. Nor does the matter end simply with grief for the loss of my father. Heaven has laid sorrows upon me of yet another kind, for the chiefs from all our islands, Dulichium, Sami, and wooded island Zakynthus, as also all principal men of Ithaca itself, are eating at my house under the pretext of paying their court to my mother, who will neither point blank say she will not marry, nor yet bring matters to an end. So they are making havoc of my estate, and before long do so also with myself. So his mother's playing a political game. She doesn't want to discourage them because then they'll probably just kill her outright. So this is very interesting, but I hear my children have gotten up, so I will continue reading where I have left off in the next installment. Fellows, join me for that. But as it is Christmas Eve, I will be going and spending some time with my family. Enjoy. So I got my family all set up. Everything's good. I got my tea, got my Odyssey by Homer mug. And we're back in. I'm looking to finish chapter 1 today because that'd be some good progress. So, So right after Telemachus is explaining to Athena how everyone's eating up all of his wealth and his mother does nothing about it, he doesn't quite understand how things are yet. Is that so? Exclaimed Athena. Then you do indeed want Odysseus home again. Give him his helmet, shield, and a couple lances, and if he is the man he was when I first knew him in our house, drinking and making merry, he would soon lay his hands about these rascally suitors, were he to stand once more upon his own threshold. He was then coming from Ephyra, where he had been to beg poison for his arrows from Ilius, son of Merimus. Ilus feared the ever-living gods and would not give him any, but my father let him have some, for he was very fond of him. Odysseus is the man he then was, very crafty. Wants poison arrows so that he's more deadly. If Odysseus is the man who he was then, these suitors will have short shrift and a sorry wedding. But there it rests with heaven to determine whether he is to return, and take his revenge in his own house. It's actually funny, rest with heaven, as in not Poseidon. However, I would urge you, set about trying to get rid of these suitors at once. Take my advice, call the Achaean heroes in assembly tomorrow morning, lay your case before them, and call heaven to bear you witness. Bid the suitors take themselves off, each to his own place, and if your mother's mind is set upon marrying again, let her go back to her father, who will find her a husband and provide her with all the marriage gifts, so that a dear daughter may expect. As for yourself, let me prevail upon you to take the best ship you can get, with a crew of 20 men, and go in quest of your father, who has been so long missing. Someone may tell you something, or, and people often hear things in this way, some heaven-sent message may direct you. So she's saying the gods may speak to you directly. First go to Pylos and ask Nestor. Thence go to Sparta and visit Menelaus, for he got home last of all the Achaeans. If you hear that your father is alive and on his way home, you can put up with the waste these suitors will make for yet another 12 months. If, on the other hand, you hear of his death, Come home at once, celebrate his funeral rites with all due pomp, build a barrow to his memory, and make your mother marry again. Then, having done all this, think it well over in your mind how by fair means or foul you may kill these suitors in your own house. You are too old to plead infancy any longer. Have you not heard how people are singing Orestes' praises for having killed his father's murderer Aegisthus? You are a fine, smart-looking fellow. Show your mettle, then, and make yourself a name in story. Now, however, I must go back to my ship and to my crew. Who will be impatient if I keep them waiting longer? Think the matter over for yourself, and remember what I have said to you. Sir, answered Telemachus, it has been very kind of you to talk to me in this way, as though I were your own son. I will do all you tell me. I know you want to be getting on with your voyage, but stay a little longer till you have taken a bath and refreshed yourself. Then I will give you a present, and you shall go on your way rejoicing. I will give you one of great beauty and value, a keepsake such as only dear friends give to one another. Devin answered, do not try to keep me, for I would be on my way at once. As for any present you may be disposed to make me, keep it till I come again, and I will take it home with me. You shall give me a very good one, and I shall give you one of no less value in return. With these words she flew away like a bird into the air, but she had given Telemachus courage and made him think more than ever about his father. He felt the change, wondered at it, and knew that the stranger had been a god. So he went straight to where the suitors were sitting. Phemius was singing, and his hearers sat wrapped in silence as he told the sad tale of the return home from Troy, the ills Athena had laid upon the Achaeans. Penelope, daughter of Icarius, heard this song from her room upstairs and came down the staircase, not alone, but attended by two handmaidens. When she reached the suitors, she stood by one of the bearing posts that supported the roof of the cloisters, with a staid maiden on either side of her. She held a veil, moreover, before her face, and was weeping bitterly. Phemius, she cried, you may know another feat of gods and heroes, such as poets love to celebrate. Sing the suitors some of these, and let them drink their wine in silence. But cease this sad tale, for it breaks my sorrowful heart, and reminds me of my lost husband, whom I mourn ever without ceasing, and whose name was great all over Hellas and middle Argos. Mother, answered Telemachus, let the bard sing what he has a mind to. Bards do not make the ills they sing of. It is Zeus, not they, who makes them, and sends well or woe upon mankind, according to his own good pleasure. This fellow means no harm by singing of the ill-fated return of the Dans, for people always applaud the latest songs most warmly. Make up your mind and bear it. Odysseus is not the only man who never came back from Troy, but many another went down as well as he. Go then within the house and busy yourself with daily duties, your loom, your distaff, and the ordering of your servants. For speech is a man's matter, and mine above all others, for it is I who am master here. She went wondering back into the house, and laid her son's saying in her heart. Then going upstairs with the handmaidens into her room, she mourned her dear husband till Athena shed sweet sleep over her eyes. But the suitors were clamorous throughout the covered cloisters, and prayed each one that he might be her bedfellow. Then Telemachus spoke. Shameless, he cried, insolent suitors, let us feast at our pleasure now, and let there be no brawling, for it is a rare thing to hear a man with such a divine voice as Phemius here. But in the morning meet me in full assembly, that I may give you formal notice to depart, and feast in one another's houses, and turn about at your own costs. If, on the other hand, you choose to persist in sponging upon one man, heaven help me, but Zeus shall reckon with you in full, and when you fall in my father's house, there shall be no man to avenge you. The suitors bit their lips as they heard him, and marveled at the boldness of his speech. Then Antinous, son of Eupythides, said, the gods seem to have given you lessons in bluster and tall talking. May Zeus never grant you to be chief of Ithaca as your father was before you. Telemachus answered, Antinous, do not chide with me, but God willing, I will be chief too if I can. Is this the worst fate you can think of for me? It is no bad thing to be a chief, for it brings both riches and honor. Still, now that Odysseus is dead, there are a great many men in Ithaca, both old and young, and some other may take the lead among them. Nevertheless, I will be chief in my own house, and I will rule over those whom Odysseus has won for me. Then Eurymachus, the son of Polybus, answered, it rests with heaven to decide who shall be chief among us. But you shall be master in your own house, and over your own possessions. While there is man in Ithaca, no one shall do you violence or rob you. And now, good fellow, I want to know about this stranger. What country does he come from? Of what family is he? What estate? Has he brought you news about the return of your father? Or was he on business of his own? He seemed a well-to-do man, but hurried off so suddenly he was gone a moment before we could get to know him. My father is dead and gone, answered Telemachus. Even if some rumor reaches me, I put no more faith in it now. My mother does indeed sometimes send for a soothsayer and question him, but I give his prophesying no heed. As for the stranger, he was Mente's son of Anchialus, chief of the Taphians, and an old friend of my father's. But in his heart he knew it had been the goddess. The suitors then returned to their singing and dancing until evening. But when the night fell upon their pleasuring, they went home to bed, each to his own abode. Telemachus's room was high up in a tower that looked over the outer court. Hither then he hied up, brooding, full of thought. A good old woman, Euryclea, the daughter of Ops, son of Pisanor, went before him with a couple blazing torches. Laertes had bought her with his own money when she was quite young, and he gave the worth of 20 oxen for her, and showed as much respect to her and his household as did his own wedded wife. But he did not take her to bed, for he feared his wife's resentment. She it was who now lighted Telemachus to his room. She loved him better than any other woman in the house did, for she had nursed him when he was a baby. She opened the door of his bedroom and sat down upon the bed as he took off his shirt and gave it to the good old woman, who folded it up tidily and hung it for him over a peg by his bedside. After which she went on and pulled the door by a silver catch and drew the bolt home by means of keeping the strap. But Telemachus, as he lay covered with wooden fleece, kept thinking all night through his intended voyage. And the counsel that Athena had given him. That is the end of chapter 1 of the Odyssey.